Now, in my video about the 10 Lords of the Labyrinth, I made a mistake by not really mentioning much about Gadora, one of their newest members. And in order to rectify that, it's time to do a character breakdown for him as well. So in this video, I'll be going over the backstory of Gadora, his skills and abilities, as well as learning how powerful he actually is. With that said, this video will contain spoilers for the anime and light novel, so here's a spoiler warning just in case. Also, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a like, or if you want, subscribe to the channel for more breakdowns like this in the future. So who is Gadora? Well, he used to be a mage that resided in the Eastern Empire and someone who played a major role in the growth of their military power. But before he joined the Empire, he lived in the Western nations and spent his entire life in the pursuit of knowledge. In order to continue accumulating knowledge, he created the reincarnation spell, which allows him to be reborn in a new body while retaining his old memories. He continued to be reincarnated, and around 1,000 years before the events of the anime, Gadora had met and befriended a cardinal from the Western Holy Church named Adalman. However, their friendship was cut short when Adalman was betrayed by the 7 celestial sages and sent to his death. Gadora tried to save Adalman with reincarnation, but it failed, and it caused Adalman to be reborn as an undead monster instead. Now, if you want to know more about Adalman, feel free to watch another video where I talked about him in detail, links in the description. In any case, Gadora then vowed to take revenge against the Western Holy Church and the 7 celestial sages, so he defected to the Eastern Empire. And during his time in the Empire, he managed to become the Imperial Court Magician and one of the Emperor's close friends. He also constantly pushed for the Empire to invade the Western nations, and he would go on to create the Magic Corps, one of the 3 most powerful armies in the Empire. Eventually, the Empire launched a military campaign to invade the West around 350 years ago, and Gadora was part of that campaign. However, it ended in failure because one of the generals had the bright idea to attack the Storm Dragon in the Great Jewel Forest, and their entire army was wiped out, and Gadora was the only survivor. Because of this, the Empire had to rebuild their military, and around this time, Gadora would learn about the Otherworlders. He became fascinated by their stories and the knowledge they possessed, so he appealed to the Emperor about their usefulness, so many Otherworlders were brought to their country. And using the knowledge of the Otherworlders and their unusual skills, there was a technological boom within the Empire, and Gadora was able to modernize their army with numerous inventions like the spell gun and the Imperial Magic Saber, which allowed even non-magic users to wield magic. However, it was because of these innovations that caused Gadora's magic to become obsolete, and even his magic corps was disbanded in favor for these new innovations, which is quite ironic. Nevertheless, Gadora continued to help the Empire because all he cared about was the destruction of Luminism and the Western nations. He later would become acquainted with YUUKI KAGURAZAKA through the secret organization Cerberus, and they will have a mutual work relationship with each other. YUUKI provided him with Otherworlders, while Gadora helped train them and used his connections to allow them to join the Imperial Army. Gadora even helped YUUKI get a position within the Mixed Corps when he joined the Empire, and later he learned about YUUKI's plan to overthrow the Empire, but he didn't really care about what becomes of the Empire as long as he's able to bury those who killed his friend Adalman. However, what Gadora didn't know was that he was being partially used by YUUKI, and he was given incomplete information so that he would push for the Imperial Army to attack the Tempest Federation first. This was because YUUKI deemed Gadora to be dangerous and wanted him to fight Rimuru. While it succeeded and the Empire decided to invade the Western nations again, so Gadora went to investigate the Tempest Federation. He brought along 3 of his disciples, Shinji Tanimura, Sing Liu Sing, and Mark Lauren. While his disciples went to the Monster Nation, Gadora decided to visit another of his disciples, the Mage Razan, to ask about the Demon Lord Rimuru and try to convince the Farmer Kingdom to join the Empire. When Gadora arrived in the Farmer Kingdom, he was greeted by Razan and was brought to meet with Yom, the new king. And before the meeting, it was funny how Gadora just decided to point out all the flaws of Yom, Sare, Grigory, Razan, and Grucius, even instructing them on how to improve without being asked to. But seriously though, it was impressive how he managed to deduce the potential and weakness of someone without needing to see them fight, likely from his years of experience as a teacher, and probably because he has some very high-level observational abilities. Aside from that, Gadora even showed that he's not just an old man, as he fought against Sare and Grigory, who mind you were both former martial sages and were at the level of an enlightened human as well. During the battle, Gadora showcased his skills as a sorcerer, being able to cast multiple spells at the same time, and even having such control over magic that he could interfere with the mana of his opponents and stopping them from activating magic as well. The battle then ended with the 2 men being one-sidedly beaten by Gadora. So after the battle, when Gadora learned about the death of Granbell Rosso and the 7 celestial sages, he lost all his drive for vengeance, and he realized there was no longer any reason for him to side with the Empire, especially when he learned about the terrifying people Rimuru had working under him. He decided to join the Tempest Federation without hesitation, and needless to say, despite being a great sorcerer, Gadora is definitely quite a shrewd man with no sense of loyalty whatsoever. Razan then helped Gadora set up a meeting with Rimuru, where he proceeded to review the Empire's plan to invade and take control of Veldora as well as Yuuki's plan to overthrow the Empire. Afterwards, Gadora pledged his allegiance to Rimuru and he was allowed to meet his old friend Adalman. He was also placed under the care of Adalman and given his own room in Rimurus's Labyrinth. But before he was officially accepted in Tempest, he was asked by Rimuru to return to the Empire and try to stop the war. And if that failed, he was also asked to convince the Empire to attack the Labyrinth instead, so he was given some treasures from the Labyrinth, including a resurrection bracelet to use as bait. During the Imperial War Conference, the former failed and Gadora had to now convince the Imperial Court to attack the Labyrinth. Gadora was successful in that, and the Empire decided to send Kaguro and his armored corps to challenge the Labyrinth. Before Gadora left the Empire, he wanted to try one last time to warn the Emperor as a friend and to offer his final service as the Imperial Court Magician. However, he was stopped by Lieutenant Kondo, who discovered his betrayal, and he was stabbed in the back by Damrada. Luckily, Gadora was a very paranoid man, so he always prepared numerous spells for different situations beforehand, like a teleportation spell for when he needed to escape, a self-breaking spell to kill himself, and a reincarnation spell if he dies or gets killed. He activated his teleportation spell, transporting himself back to his room in the Labyrinth, and he was revived with the resurrection bracelet. When he returned to Tempest, he reported everything back to Rimuru and they started to prepare for the upcoming war. Eventually, the Empire invaded, and before the attack, he was asked to join a secret meeting between Rammus, Veldora and the Floor Guardians. They decided to give Gadora a trial run as one of the 10 Lords of the Labyrinth because Beretta stepped down as the Overseer and they wanted to fill in the numbers. So Gadora was given permission to pilot the Demon Colossus as the Floor Guardian of the 60th floor. He was also given the title of Rune Master by Rammus and Veldora because they thought it would be cooler. Now regarding the specs of the Demon Colossus, it's a golem created by Rammus and the other researchers inside the Labyrinth with spirit engineering. The golem itself is made from magic steel, making it immune to most physical attacks and weapons, and despite weighing about 30 metric tons, it was extremely agile. But besides that, it also has a protective magic barrier surrounding it, so even lightning, water and fire attacks were rendered ineffective. Then pair the specs of the golem with Gadora's knowledge and skills, he can easily defeat most opponents at the Calamity or lower disaster level. That's why when the armored corps started their attack on the Labyrinth, the soldiers sent to Gadora's floor were easily defeated by him even though they were all at least rank A warriors. So with that, they stopped the first Eastern Empire invasion, and during the Tempest reward ceremony, Gadora became an official member of the 10 Lords of the Labyrinth and he was now part of the Tempest Federation's R&D department, being granted full access to all the research facilities inside the Labyrinth. And after the ceremony, Gadora had apparently requested to become Diablo's disciple like Razan, but he still needed to prove his true loyalty to Rimuru, so Diablo rejected his request. However, Diablo did secretly mark Gadora with his Tempter skill to observe him because he did find Gadora to be interesting. When the Empire attacked for a second time, Gadora along with the Demon Colossus was sent to Dwargon to assist King Gazer. When he arrived on the battlefield, he decided to face the Marshal, or better known as the True Dragon Valgrim, because he knew they couldn't defeat her, so he tried to distract her instead. He tried talking with Valgrim, but he was lucky the only reason she humoured him and didn't choose to kill him was because he was close friends with Emperor Rudra. Eventually, Valgrim had to leave, but before she left, she teleported the Empire's Warcraft Legion to the battlefield. The real battle started and Gadora fought against GOSELINE the Black Tortoise, one of the Warcraft Legion's generals. However, GOSELINE was the worst possible opponent for Gadora because of her ability to use ultra-fine vibration waves to dissipate all of his magical attacks, and her Majesty body was also able to penetrate the defenses of the Demon Colossus. Even the Demon Colossus' strongest attack, the Destruction Cannon, an attack that fires a powerful ray of destruction made from highly condensed magicals, was easily blocked by GOSELINE. Gadora was then forced to fight at melee range, but he was constantly getting stabbed by her Majesty tentacles and he had to use his trump card Elemental Magic Life Sublimation to try and defeat her. Unfortunately, his attack failed to kill GOSELINE and he perished, but like I said, he's always prepared and had a resurrection spell ready. But this time the spell was different because Diablo had sensed his loyalty to Rimuru and had altered the spell to cause Gadora to be reborn as a demon of Diablo's lineage. Thus, Gadora was now a spiritual lifeform, so he only needed a physical body to be truly complete, and luckily for him, the newly awakened Mana Seal was like I got you, offering to give him a powerful body along with the ultimate power. Gadora accepted the offer, so he was reborn in a younger form and evolved into a new demon race called the Metallic Demon, a race that should be somewhat similar to Beretta's Chaos Doll race. But besides that, Gadora also received the ultimate gift Grimoire, a book that contains all the magic that Seal manages and he has access to all of them. And apparently it is almost similar to Adalman's Necronomicon, likely born from their friendship with one another. So this ultimate gift has 9 sub-skills, 6 of which are the basic ones like Thought Acceleration, Universal Perception, Demon Lord Haki, Chant Annulment, Analyze and Assess, and All Creation. As for the 3 unique ones, the first one is called Mental Crush, and this essentially allows the user to target and destroy the enemy's mind through psychic attacks. Next is Knowledge Browsing, which is an ability that allows Gadora to use all the spells stored within Seal's database. And the last one is Concept Sharing. It works like Rimuro's food chain, but he can only share abilities with Adalman. So with his newly acquired ultimate gift, he now has an EV of 1.1 million, making him part of the Super Awakened class. And he also acquired a new title, and I'm not sure if I should laugh or just feel bad for Gadora, because his title is literally just Servant Number 2 and Diablo's Errand Dog. But what do you think? Are either of these titles good or bad for Gadora? Feel free to share your thoughts down below. Anyway, Gadora would use his new powers to defeat GOSELINE by burning her alive, and this time it worked, so the battle ended and the Empire was defeated. Gadora later served as a witness for the official surrender of the Empire and the signing of the Non-Aggression Pact with the Tempest Federation. But after that, Gadora was sent to the Empire to help Tensura with Masayuki Honjo's ascension to the throne as the new Emperor. He was also sent to numerous Western nations to inform and help them prepare for the upcoming war with the Mana Smiker and Phantom King Feldway. And during this period, he mostly stayed in the Farmer Kingdom to help in the defense and provided training to Razan, Sare, and Grigory. Eventually, when the Western nations gathered to meet with Emperor Masayuki in the city of Ingratia, Gadora served as the escort of Hero King Yom. When Feldway attacked the city, Gadora was mostly absent because Tensura ordered him to protect the foreign dignitaries. However, I'm sure we'll still see Gadora in the upcoming volumes, but whether or not he'll have more screen time, that's another story. So yeah, that's everything on Gadora. I think he's quite interesting, and I personally enjoy seeing a character that's more of a thinker rather than a fighter. But what about you? What are your thoughts on Gadora's character overall? I would love to read your comments about it down below. Also, if you enjoyed the video, feel free to give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification button for more content like this in the future. As always, thanks for watching and stay safe everyone.